Christina is with us again today. And the Global Health Program has been around for like 14 years, and it is housed at the University of Southern California. So in addition to this Teaching in Virtual Environment series, I wanted to let you know also that we will be opening up abstract submissions soon for our annual conference, which is going to be held this year in Hong Kong, but it will be virtual. And the theme is urban health. So I hope you'll consider submitting to that, and also let your students know about our student poster contest. We have 2 awards for undergraduate, first place undergraduate and first place graduate categories. They get quite a lot of decent amount of money for the prize. So I will post our link to our website where you can check out these and many other initiatives that we have. Ellie has also put up here oh, this is still part 3. We'll tell you.
I have part 4. It's at the end. I don't have it here.
I'm just going to we'll tell you at the end, but we do have a part 4 that we're very excited to organize, and that will be beginning very soon, like next week. So this also, if you are if you've attended the other 2 sessions of this part 3, we are keeping track, and we will be sending you out your certificate of participation again within a couple of weeks. So let me stop talking and let me introduce today's session. So let's see, the topic is the imperative need for collaboration during COVID for higher education. And today our speakers are, once again, our extraordinaire Ellie van de Grift, who is the Program Director for Global Science Education Initiatives in the Division of Global Engagement at the University of Oregon. She is trained as an ecologist and has taught university-level life science courses, led STEM education professional development programs, and supported curricular and pedagogical reform to make science interesting, engaging, and relevant to improve students' learning experiences. And please check out her full bio on the website. And you can see also some links to Twitter and the website there. And then our second facilitator and speaker tonight comes from Ecuador. So Claudia Tobar directs the Institute for Teaching and Learning, IDEA, I love the name, at the Universidad San Francisco de Quito in Ecuador. She is the founder of Shift Academy, where she leads innovation projects for higher education. She teaches in the Department of Education in the undergraduate program. She's also editor-in-chief of Para el Aula magazine, a quarterly publication resource by and for teachers. She runs a children's library for the community and develops educational innovative projects using technology. She has a doctorate degree in education, as well as a master's degree in special education and preschool. So thank you so much to both of you for leading this today.
Thank you so much, Melissa. It's so wonderful to see repeat names. We're so glad that you're here. And if this is the first time that you've joined us, a warm welcome to you as well. Our goals for the session today are to provide pedagogical technology and peer support to faculty across our APRU network as we're thinking about networking and teaching remotely, and to create opportunities for APRU affiliated faculty. And in this workshop series, we have certainly moved beyond the APRU to a really global audience, but faculty who attend to connect and share resources and experiences. The format for today is that Claudia and I will share some thoughts about collaboration for approximately 30 minutes. We're going to both talk about student collaboration and faculty collaboration. And then we'll have about 30 minutes for small group discussion and 30 minutes for large group discussion. We've all had so much Zoom over the past year and a little bit, but I think many of you have found your audio and video connections in the lower left-hand corner. I always encourage you, if you can, to write down notes for yourself so you remember the good ideas for later. We will use breakout rooms, and please feel free to use the chat for any aha moments that you have, any thoughts that you want to share, or any questions that you have. So student group work. We're going to dive right into using the chat. If you're in a place where you're able to use the chat, I would love for you to share an answer to this question. What types of group collaborations do you assign to students? Go ahead and type right into the chat if you're able. Okay, Iris writes their coursework, and Melissa writes final video presentations. I shared that I use in-class worksheets. Claudia has a capstone final project that's designed for group work. Tina writes simulations. Great, so some of those are really small scale and some of those are much larger scale. Oh, Catherine writes case studies, including discussion and presentation. And John Eric writes video infomercials. Love that. What a neat way to capture some class content. Excellent. All right, so another question for you. As a professional, what types of group collaborations are you engaged in? So we thought about our students, now think about you. Key writes that they're doing problem-based learning in groups for students. And Adik writes field work for the university lab settings. Claudia has PD, so professional development. Manuscript writing, Melissa and I have been doing that together a lot. It's been lots of fun. Claudia writes research, joint papers. Catherine writes Jamboard, which is a Google add-on for doing concept mapping. IEC, Catherine, I don't know what IEC is. If you could type that out as a full name. Simulation activities, we've got research, program development. Christina writes, National Technical Committee on Nutrition, Iris writes. Key has brainstorming for new ideas and research projects. And Adik writes case studies and discussions. Great. Iris includes meetings and conferences. Excellent. So lots of ways that we constantly engage with other people, whether it's our students in the classroom or our colleagues. We're going to take a moment to reflect on what we bring to group work. And I want to present this through the lens of what are called constructive and destructive group behaviors. Some of you may have experienced this before. This is something I use both in faculty professional development and with my students. So we have a continuum here, and I'm going to read off of each of these continuums, and then we'll have a moment to look at the details a little bit more. Where we can have behaviors that when we do them in a group are very constructive. Those are the ones on the right-hand side, where they help the group process along. These are when things are going really well, that we know how we're engaging in a way that's supporting our teammates. The destructive behaviors on the left are things that people do when they're stressed and that can make the experience less good for them and less good for their teammates. So for example, we can have cooperating where you're flexible, or blocking where somebody is indecisive, or even worse, they're saying that idea won't work and they're stopping any forward progress. We can also think about clarifying, where I don't understand something, so I ask about it, or digressing or obfuscating, where you're questioning it in such a way that the content can't move forward. So each of these has a pair on them. Inspiring, discounting is the next one. Harmonizing versus dominating. Promoting the process versus withdrawing, and process checking and rushing. Those are the pairs here. Sometimes I also think about these very much just kind of independently. And the next thing that I'm going to ask you to do is to read through a list. On the next screen. I'm going to give you constructive and destructive behaviors and definitions for them, and ask you to choose one constructive behavior that you demonstrate, that you do when something is going really well in a group, and one destructive behavior that you do when you know that you're stressed and that it detracts from the group process and group experience. So here's the full list of the constructive and destructive group behaviors. Read through these, choose one from the top list, one from the bottom list that describes you when you are working in a group. And then when you've picked it out, when you're done, if you could type done in the chat. I'm going to give you just another few seconds to keep reading. When I'm doing this in class with my students, I have them use name tents, where I have them use a piece of paper with their name on the front and the back. And I have students write their constructive and their destructive behaviors on that. I also use this with faculty when we're doing in-person professional development, because it's a good reminder about what are your constructive and what are somebody else's constructive and your destructive. So I tend to be a process checker as my constructive, and my destructive varies on the group and the moment that I'm in, but I often find that I'm a blocker, where it takes me a while to process ideas. So if somebody's sharing ideas really quickly, my initial instinct is to say, no, that'll never work. But I also know that I digress and I withdraw. So each of us can have many of these that we demonstrate in different situations. One thing that we can do on Zoom is that we can rename ourselves and do the Zoom rename and add your constructive and destructive group behaviors. Sometimes that feels uncomfortable in a group of people who don't know each other. So I thought it would be nice to know what are the constructive and destructive behaviors that are represented in our group today. I've launched a Zoom poll, and there's 2 questions on here, and you can anonymously share your constructive behavior. Some of you have already shared them in the chat as well, which is great, but you can go ahead and include, show your constructive and destructive behaviors. In the way you're seeing the poll, can you see both questions at the same time? Okay, great. All right, and if you could take just another 10 seconds to put your answers in. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And in this group, we can see a range of characteristics that people display, both for the constructive and the destructive. And this is something that I typically find when I do this activity with groups of students or with groups of faculty, is that we have a range of these behaviors. I'll tell you one last thing that I love about this is that I worked with a faculty colleague who is a dominator. And when in the particular group we were in, I was both withdrawing and digressing. And the nice thing about working with this faculty member and having our names on here is that when she was digressing, or I'm sorry, when she was dominating, I could say, wait a minute, could you hold on? I want to hear other people's voices because I'm only hearing your voice. And if I started to tell a story about the interesting thing that had happened in my life, she could say to me, Ellie, you're digressing. Can you come back to the group project right now? So it gave us a lot of ability to be able to communicate. And I forgot to share the results. Can you see the results? I'm sorry, I forgot to share them. Okay, cooperating behaviors and destructive behaviors. Great. One more thing that I want to share about roles, and if you are a repeat attender to these sessions, you'll know that when we put you into breakout rooms, we often give you roles for the groups. This comes out of a pedagogy that started in chemistry called POGIL, which stands for Process-Oriented Guided Inquiry Learning. And in POGIL, they have these very set roles for students. So there's a manager or a facilitator who makes sure that the group is moving forward. There's a recorder who writes down the activities that the group is doing for the day. There's a spokesperson or a presenter or a reporter. Those are all names that are used. And then I like this strategy analyst or the reflector, the person who's thinking about the dynamics and the behavior within the group and reporting that back. In each of these cases, the students are still participating, but they also have this additional role to keep the group process moving forward. So now I'm going to turn it over to Claudia. Oh, I just realized that I have the wrong PowerPoint open. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to get the right PowerPoint open. Claudia, do you want to introduce yourself for a moment while I do that?
Sure, and actually I would love to talk a little more about student collaborations. As you were describing these amazing strategies that we could use as educators for remote teaching, there's something I usually talk about in Shift Academy about group work. It's the reflection that as educators, we always assume that someone else is teaching students how to do group work. Like even as professionals, like I have, and sometimes I've felt myself, or I have some colleagues that they've never been like guided through the process of group work. Group work is not something natural. It sometimes comes as a very forced task that students are not comfortable with. I don't know if you relate with me, but sometimes when you say this is going to be a group work, they're like, oh, can I please do it alone? I don't like group work. So it's not a natural process for them. So what I usually tell my faculty when we're doing professional development, I say that you have to invest in time to talk about group work in your class. Don't just assume that students know about their roles and know about the expectations you have for them. So what I usually do is I spend like a week probably talking with them about the roles. And one thing I do about the roles, and I also use that role description you share that, Ellie. But I make them rotate because I think sometimes we are very comfortable with being one type of role, but as our role as educators actually force them to develop the skills and the aptitudes they have not developed yet. For example, when you did this poll with me, I can be cooperative, but I can be very dominant. So I need to be forced to not be the leader. I need to be forced sometimes to just I don't know, do the reflective role or do something that doesn't come natural for me. And that's going to be more useful for me than continue being the dominant one. So what I use, and this is another strategy just to add up what Ellie was saying, is I do the talent inventory, I call it. So at the beginning of the group work, I tell the group that's going to work together that they have to go ahead and tell their talent. And the talent doesn't necessarily have to be an aptitude. It could be something like, I'm very good with technology. I love doing videos. I'm very good with, I don't know, adding graphics in the presentations. So you ask students to really share their talents, and sometimes the talents are not going to be as clear for the project, but everything adds up. But then the other thing they have to share in this inventory is why are they sometimes misunderstood on the groups? Because I don't think that everybody wants to be dominant, to be bad or evil. It's something that because we're stressed, we tend to show ourselves as dominant, or because we're shy, we tend to seem uninterested, but it's not because we're willingly not want to contribute to the group. So when I asked them to reflect about what are their misinterpretations sometimes when they have group work before, it's amazing how they reflect on themselves and say, I'm showing myself as as not interested in the project, but I'm actually so shy to share my ideas with people I don't know. So that way the group can address that problem. So that's something that has worked magic for me to help students, like, and I have to evaluate that in the course, because that's the way I found that they really put the energy and really think about the charter and the talent inventory. I don't know. It's something I wanted to share with you because as Ellie was sharing, I was like, oh my God, these ideas are perfect to even um, make my own strategies even better. So thank you, Ellie, for sharing. So, okay, my part of the presentation was about faculty collaborations. And as Melissa introduced me before, I do professional development. I run the unit for professional development. But we opened very recently, like 2018. But it was amazing how in the pandemic, there was not a better time in history to be called Shift Academy, because all we did on 2020 was shift. So all of a sudden, our unit was very, very important for the remote transition. And there was something magical that happened. Like, we were obviously short-staffed to train all of the faculty members to remote teaching. Less than 10% of them had experiences teaching in any online format. So really, they didn't know anything about Zoom or the LMS or the platform. But the nice thing about was this collaboration that arose. And it came by we just asking for help. Sometimes you feel like maybe faculty members are too busy to collaborate. And it was so amazing how we just opened a group that was called the Shift Champions. And we asked the whole faculty, it was like 800 faculty members, and we asked who could give us a hand, because we have to train in this blended flexible learning mode that we designed at Shift. But we had to train in a blended way, but we needed instructors to give feedback to each of the activities and tasks we were sending other faculty members. And it was amazing how this group of around 40 faculty members from all the disciplines in the university stepped in and really became mentors for other faculty members. And this was something we were not expecting. I don't know if we could go to the next one, Ellie. It was very, very inspiring to see that sometimes we feel we don't have the resources, like we don't have, we are short staffed, we don't have the best LMS, or we don't have maybe the budget to buy all these amazing platforms that help you give remote teaching in a very interactive way. But I think we underestimate the power that we have in collaboration in higher education. And for me, when we were just talking initially with Ellie about this conference, is we're saying that there's an imperative there, the need for collaboration. And the word imperative is very strong, because I think that's the only way we are really going to be stronger after this pandemic and not weaker, because it has been a very troubled time, very difficult for many faculty members. So it was very inspiring to see. And as just Ellie was talking about how we can engage students in better collaboration experiences and better group work experiences, the same needs to happen with faculty members. We sometimes assume that people are comfortable working together, of having diverse views in everything they do. we have had the experiences to make subgroups of research, for example, with many disciplines coming together. And that collaboration, even though in some cases it doesn't end in a publication or a paper, that interaction has begun an opening for them to invite each other to the classes. And that's an amazing thing about Zoom, even though we're zoomed out sometimes and very fatigued about this modality. But actually, it's so easy to invite speakers, not only internationally, but maybe even locally from other disciplines to your class. And that has been something that has arose very commonly at our university. So as an energizer, just to stop talking for a little bit and make you participate a little more, I want you to answer through the chat this quick question. Something that you, after 1 year of remote teaching, one thing that you identify that you couldn't have been able to survive remote teaching without. It could be anything. It could be, like, I think coffee for me, just as simple as that. Like, coffee has been getting me through remote teaching. I just want to see some answers. What has been something that you can not live without? Who can share something? Oh, obviously, Lydia, that's perfect. Internet connection, obviously. And that has been something that has shown some of the biggest gaps we see in our students, right? Like, we assume that they have internet connection and we design a class for that. And then it's not happening. Sleep, coffee, PowerPoint with the capability of recording. Yes, that's making your class asynchronic, right? Friends, teaching friends, my headphones that come with a microphone. I don't know if anybody else like has had this thing that they discovered and it has made their life so much easier during the remote teaching pandemic. Help from friends, husband, colleagues, anyone who gets me to be more tech savvy. Perfect, Tracy. Thank you for sharing. So definitely, I think we have learned along the way that there are many things that have become very important for us. And the thing is, I don't think we're going to come back post-pandemic and not use these amazing resources we have developed. And one of the things that has come in your comments very naturally is the help from friends and colleagues, and know that even though we're in this together, maybe we're not doing, not everybody's in the same place. And that's something we need to share, because for some people, this has been very easy. We have some faculty members that they have even enjoyed it so much that they now want to teach exclusively remotely. And that's new for them because they never discovered that phase in them that they have enjoyed this much. But some others, they're really struggling. They're really having a really hard time. And the only thing that has helped us identify is forcing this collaboration activities. And I say forcing because sometimes it's not natural for teachers, after everything they have to do, to connect online and participate. But we have been seeing how so many tools that have been shared, just like now. Can you go next, Ellie? So we have found collaboration as a mechanism to cope with the whole pandemic thing. So it's funny how we have developed from professional development that was usually about pedagogy and technology, and we have moved to making a working moms club, of making a book club about mindset and mental health. So we have moved and understand on the spectrum of professional development. You cannot have a focused teacher doing tech savvy things and being absolutely overwhelmed at home. So this club about the working moms, it's actually working moms / dads community, and it's very funny because we just share our crazy frustrations of being working from home, or the kids turning on their camera when we thought we were not on, and all of these crazy things that happen. But it has been actually helping other teachers understand that they're coping and it's okay and it's very hard. So we actually assumed a different role that was not planned, and it was because two faculty members from medicine just suggested and say, can through Shift, can we create a club for working moms and dads? Because I really think we need that. So it was not just all imposed by our unit. So we became just a unit of facilitation and for collaboration. Can we go next? So these are the Shift champions I told you about, that they came very naturally and evolved from the community to help others, and they became the mentors. So we were just like, as I told you before, facilitating this amazing work, and we were actually seeing results. We were seeing faculty members that developed a very nice infographic, and they were sharing with everybody saying, okay, here's the template, please use it because it's so helpful. The links are already programmed, and all of a sudden we have this chat of all the champions filled with templates and information and articles, and it's like having a unit that works on its own. It's self-feeding unit of development. Go next. So these are just examples, as I told you about, of possible adaptation and learning experiences we have had and that have been seen very useful. So COIL, for example, is the best example of this growing innovation. Before the pandemic, we had 4 COILs at the university, at the whole university. And then in 1 year, we ended up with 16, and then we are about to finish this year with 60. So the growth was exponential. It was like all the teachers were realizing all the benefits of connecting internationally. We have actually many colleagues here that are participating with COIL with us. So we're happy that grew so easy, and I'm glad to say that's going to stay post-pandemic for sure. And as Ali's question before, for example, my capstone project for the thesis project for the undergrad students for education is a capstone project designed with collaboration with the industry, because I think we have talked about the collaboration between students, the collaboration between faculty members, but another way to collaborate that's very useful as a learning experience, as you all know, it's collaborating with the real life, with industry, with organizations outside the university. So the whole capstone project, it's designed to be consultants at another organization so they can help develop solutions. And it has been a great way to engage them in the outside world, but also develop this collaboration strategies we're talking about that sometimes they lack during their university experience. And I think just finally, I have one last slide to share that also in research, you could have thoughtful reflection and amazing results can come out of this. We just published this article last month on how, and it was amazing because it was psychology, education, and a medical faculty member. So these were usually profiles that were not working together to understand that it was about understanding the impact for medical students in their academic performance. So collaboration can happen everywhere. We just have to be open to the fact that distance doesn't tell if you can collaborate. Actually, it has brought us closer as faculty members. And remind everybody here that we have a website. It's called shiftacademy.com, and there we upload all the resources that we've developed internally for our university, and we're happy to share with the world. So feel free, I'm going to write it down in the chat later on so you can log in and find very useful information from infographics, templates, tutorials about how to use technological and pedagogical strategies for class. So we'll be happy to help.
Great, thank you so much. Claudia, I was just realizing as you said the chat that I should grab the breakout room questions so I can put those in the chat as well. I have to say, one of the reasons I love doing these sessions and that we keep doing them is that I learn so much every time I do another session. I learn from my colleagues. So thank you, Claudia, for that. And that reminder about how we basically feed ourselves and the support that we need. So let me go here. We have some breakout room questions. We were thinking about around what are the challenges and benefits of group collaboration. You could think about this from your own experience. You could think about this from observing your students doing those case studies or final projects. The second question is, what types of group collaborations are you already involved in professionally? Some of you put those in the chat earlier, but if there's more that you want to discuss about that, this would be a good time. The third question is, what group work do you have students do? And then the fourth question is to think a little bit future thinking, is what learning in your classes could be well suited to group work. So as you hear other ideas from your colleagues, what else might you be able to add in? I think one of the things that neither Claudia nor I said is that there's a lot of evidence that when people work in groups, they have more creative solutions and they can solve more complex problems. So that's part of the reason to include group work. And as Claudia said, our students don't necessarily know how to do it. So we can help them with some practice. When you go into your breakout rooms, please introduce yourself with your name and your institution, and then select a facilitator and a timekeeper for today to watch the time. I'm looking at the time. I think let's go ahead and do 30 minutes in the breakout rooms. And my colleague Quinn is going to put us into rooms. Are there any questions for me or for Claudia before we go into breakout rooms? No? Okay, Quinn, I think we're ready. All right, see you back here in a little bit. Timekeeper, 30 minutes. I'm back just to
evaluation or peer evaluation and really take into consideration all of these parts. We're failing to providing positive experiences for them for group work. I don't know if Ellie, colleagues in your group also discussed these challenges.
We did, yeah. We had 4 groups in total. So were there any other challenges from a different group that were different than the ones Claudia just said?
Okay, so from my group, some of us mentioned about, students are really good at using the technology or like social medias, but they're more into, their personal interests or their personal life kind of interactions. So we need to make sure like, they're also, pay attention or like willing to join those like collaborations, more like a research related or learning related. That's something.
Tina, you muted. I don't know if you were done sharing.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Catherine, do you want to share some of the other challenges that our group shared?
Maybe we came back to the main room a little bit late, so I did not catch Claudia's whole sharing. So I'll just very quickly mention in our group, we're in the same in Alice's discussion room. So we mentioned more challenges than benefits, but benefits are kind of obvious, and we'll have more ideas. Sometimes even it's best to share resources, be more open-minded, and even research students, they definitely need collaboration so that to do their research project. But challenges, we have one member mentioned that sometimes reaching consensus is a challenge in a group work. And we talk about, we can vote, majority will win, or we'll have a group leader to make the final decision. And we mentioned that in COVID, when everything transferred online, we are encountering the challenges that it's really hard to engage students in group discussion in the breakout rooms. And that's a great challenge. And sometimes group members have different opinions, conflicting ideas, which leads to the reaching consensus issues. And also we may encounter some technical difficulties when everything is online, when students are trying to work together, are in different places. So these are the benefits and challenges that we mentioned in our group. Am I correct? Did I miss anything? Please feel free to jump in if I miss anything. I think that's it.
Thanks, Catherine. Let's see, Tracy and Annie and Ari, you were in a group together. Was there someone from your group who is the reporter who wants to share anything additional?
I would like to add one thing.
Oh, please do.
Our group, if you don't mind. Okay, so obviously there's let's start from the challenges. So one of our group members may also mention about, especially for students, they haven't met each other before, or they haven't talked to each other before, and it's hard to bring them together in a collaborative work. So she used this term like sense of familiarities. Now, like if you're not familiar with a person, and it's hard to, like start a more productive conversation. Yeah, and then some benefits would be, after years of practice and everyone's familiar with the technology they're using and able to really dive into a deeper collaborations and share the resources between the groups and make the best use of it. Yeah, that's it.
Great, that's wonderful. It's a little noisy here. My family is eating dinner just a few feet away, so Sorry for the noise. Other things from other groups that we haven't heard about yet, either benefits or things that you do in your class that you think work really well. And open it up to anyone who'd like to share.
Maybe I'd like to share something out of my group. We had various participants come in at different times, but Annie, Ari, Catherine, and Guillermo, apologies for my pronunciation. I think we were from very different fields, from the law to nursing to geography to sciences. And I think even with the different subjects, we managed to share, the difficulties we had. I think everyone seemed to share is with the technology, the internet access in particular in the Philippines, not stable internet access. I have problems in Hong Kong myself. We shared lots from the different tasks and group base we use. It's a wide range of experience from using, giving sample poems, literature, through to trying to do some areas which are more suited to one-on-one training when we're talking about delicate health issues, and not everyone's comfortable sharing that in a group. And best sometimes for some of those approaches I learned from Catherine, who's in nursing, who teaches nursing, that actually would like to share those, but for one-on-one is actually more delicate. And more sensitive to do with those issues. I myself on sharing ideas in a big group to, having breakout rooms, difficulties with the technicalities, their logistics, organization with them, but with the different, mediums we tried, there's sharing of Google Meets as an alternative to other types of groups, and that seems to work for one of our members as well. So I'd like to open it to other members of my group for any points that I've missed out as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
One thing that came up in our group, unfortunately, Jose Alfredo from Tec de Monterrey had to leave, but he shared something about faculty collaborations, that they started developing this coffee meetings just to share about the personal life and how important that was, because from meeting to meeting in Zoom, I think we have been very efficient to get to the point and be very diligent in our meetings. However, we have lost that small talk that was very important for our personal connections, about just asking, how's your family? How's your dog? I see that I don't know, you have lost weight, anything. We have lost that very important small talk that brings our relationships together. And we were connecting about how can we do that to our classes too. And somebody was talking about that sometimes in Zoom discussions in breakout rooms, students are not participating as much. And sometimes it's partly because maybe we should design some questions or icebreakers that are very engaging in that personal way too. Because just expecting for strangers to start talking about, I don't know, academic things, it's kind of uncomfortable. We have not met you until I can share my thoughts and experiences. So there are a lot of icebreakers and fun icebreakers that we can share, and sometimes literally it breaks the ice so students can engage in that discussion. That's something that has worked for me like a charm, and Jose also shared in our small group.
That's great. I have a colleague who is very good at the beginning of every meeting, making sure that we go around and talk to everyone. And 12 people in the meeting, every person shares something. Just, how are you today? How's the weather? And it really is, it can just be that kind of small talk. We also, Quinn will attest to this, we've been doing icebreakers at the beginning of our staff meeting with 30 people. And so sometimes it's, recently it was, what was your first job and what's the TV show that you've been watching? And it doesn't quite replace having the conversations over coffee, but it's kind of sweet. That's great. I want to see if anybody has anything else to share, and then I want to bring up the final reflection question that we have. Anyone have anything else to share? All right, well, the two reflection questions that we have for today are, what is one idea for more student group work that you can incorporate into your courses? And this might be, you can think about someday in the future when we're back in person, maybe something that you want to do, or you can think about the reality right now still online. And then how will you integrate more group collaboration in your professional work? And feel free, I would say feel free to unmute and share, or feel free to use the chat for both of these. It does say chat on here, but very much open to anyone wanting to talk out loud.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, one idea that actually that I learned during this online, that I think I would like to do it when we go back to face, is that sometimes we're so rigid, we all deal with the lessons, but I think the saying hi and looking at each other's welfare should always be a part of teaching. That's what I'm usually rigid and I go to the lesson, but I think that's one good thing that I learned during this COVID situation. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Lydia. Melissa types in the chat that she's learned the importance of training students on how to do group work, not just saying do it, but maybe there's some boundaries around that, some structure. Excellent. Suddenly there's chaos at my house. My son is not here. I don't know what's going on. He's supposed to be home a while ago. So there's all sorts of noise. I apologize if you can hear it. We have, as Melissa said at the beginning, we have 3 more sessions coming up for part 4. We are just having so much fun with all of you that we have a part 4 series. And Adik, who is here with us today, is going to be leading a session next week with me. We're going to talk about connecting classroom teaching to the real world. The day of the week has changed. These are going to be on Wednesday if you're on my part of the Pacific, or Thursday if you're in the Hong Kong part of the Pacific where APRU is. And then we'll talk about developing learners' practical skills in remote classrooms. And then in June, for the wrap up of this 4-part series, Melissa and I are going to reflect with you on this year of virtual teaching. We have done a lot of reflection about what we have learned, but we thought it might be nice to take some time and do a little bit more formal reflection. And what does that tell us about our own resiliency and the future of higher education? Claudia, do you have any final thoughts?
No, it has been a real learning experience participating in this session. I really enjoyed knowing my small group a little more and sharing a lot of experiences, because as we started talking before, we're in this together, and it has been a really challenging, but at the same time very gratifying to see that for part of the pandemic has brought the best of us, showing collaboration, showing interest, showing curiosity, showing, as you said, resilience. So thank you for the invitation, and we are glad to be part of APRU and sharing these sessions with all of our colleagues. And please visit our website so you can use and share or suggest any material that can be useful for you, and know that collaboration between universities is also crucial for our development. So thank you. Nice sharing this moment with you, Ellie.
Thank you, Claudia. My pleasure too. Melissa, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I would just like to thank you both for taking the time to share with us your your wisdom and experience, and it's been really delightful. And thank you to everyone who has joined and shared. I like listening to the conversations and exchange of ideas. So thank you, everyone. And I hope that we will see you next week for part 4.
Yes, until next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Care. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care and see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, Kate. Bye, Adik.